All right? The problem you have a lot of places is what we call monopsony, and you may not have heard that word before. Monopoly is when there's one seller. Monopsony is when there's one buyer. There are a lot of little towns in the Midwest where there's one factory in the town. And basically all the jobs in town are in that factory. Okay? So you'll find little towns where there's 3,000 workers in that town, and 2,500 of them work at the factory. Okay? Everybody with me on this? That's a monopsony. There's one buyer of labor. Now, what's going to happen to you if you live in this town and there's one place you can go work? Well, yeah, they know that there's one place, right? They know you don't have any other choices. So what are they going to do? They're going to offer you a lower wage. When there's no competition, right? There's no reason for them to offer you a high wage, and so these businesses are going to offer their employees a low wage. Monopsony, one buyer. Okay? How do we counteract that? Well, we counteract that with a union that comes in and does collective bargaining, that bargains as a group. We call that a bilateral monopoly. So the union's a monopoly. It's the one seller of labor. The business is a monopsony. It's the one buyer of labor. And now you have one-on-one, the union and the company. Okay? I grew up in a little town in eastern Colorado, and it had a meat packing plant. It had a university in it, too. My parents were university professors. But there was a meat packing plant, and that was one of the major employers in town, was this meat packing plant. The owner of the meat packing plant got in a big fight with his union. They fought for years and years. The workers wanted better wages and better working conditions. The owner wanted to keep wages down, and in the end, he actually shut his factory down and moved it to a different state so he didn't have to deal with the union. Okay, so that's a quick, brief, exciting overview of labor. And then now really quick, we're going to talk about not even all of land. Land should be subject to the normal provisions of supply and demand. Remember the Adam Smiths of the world. They thought that because land was fixed and it couldn't pick up and move, that it really shouldn't have a price. It shouldn't be paid for. And that landlords were just ripping people off. Economists, modern economists, we know better than that because we understand marginal. How much beachfront property is there? Well, beachfront property is way more scarce than middle of the desert property. You can buy land in rural Nevada for nothing. It's really expensive to buy land on the beach. Okay? Houses in Hawaii are way more expensive than houses in Las Vegas. And houses in Las Vegas are way more expensive than houses in rural Alabama. Okay? So we believe that land should have different prices different places, and it should be based on its scarcity, on its marginal value. Right? The value of more oceanfront property is high because we want more than there is. We don't need more desert. Right? So the value of desert property is really low. Okay? Now, when we're talking about natural resources, though, some natural resources are renewable. Some natural resources last. So land, the land itself doesn't go away. Cows, if you give them a chance, will make more cows. But coal, more coal might be being made deep underground, but in general, we have all the coal we're going to have, and we're digging it up, and eventually there's not going to be any. Coal is a non-renewable natural resource. Okay? What's the problem with that? Well, if we keep digging up the coal, over time there's less and less coal, which makes coal more, you can say it, scarce. So now coal is becoming more and more and more scarce. Over time, what should happen to the price? Well, the price of non-renewable resources, coal, oil, those sorts of things, should be going up over time. So the price should be going up over time because they're getting more scarce. All right? Yes? If you look at oil production, the United States has had tremendous boom in oil production. We were #1 oil producer in the world briefly. And that's because we came up with new ways to get oil out of the ground, commonly called fracking, and also some oil sands and some other stuff. But it costs $30, $35 a barrel of oil to get the oil out of the ground in the United States. Okay? Saudi Arabia costs about $6 a barrel, and Russia costs about $12. So what we've seen when demand for oil was bad, when the COVID thing happened and everybody locked down and demand for oil went away, what we saw was Saudi Arabia and Russia driving down the price of oil, and the U.S. oil producers not being able to produce oil at a profit, and the theory being that the Saudis and the Russians are trying to kill off the U.S. oil industry because the U.S. oil industry can't survive at $20 a barrel. Just can't. It takes $30 to $35 a barrel for it to survive. The Russians and the Saudis can survive forever at $20 a barrel. Okay? Renewable resources prices should rise over time, And because of that, and because we'll run out eventually, there is an optimal rate that we should use them over time. We shouldn't dig them all up at once, and we shouldn't put them away and not touch them. There is an optimal rate that they should be used over time based upon how much there is and what's happening to the price and all this other stuff. Okay? So the use of a natural resource like coal or oil to figure out what the right amount for society to be using is complicated because we want to leave it for future generations too. We don't want one day for everybody to wake up and go, hey, there's no oil. Sorry, we shouldn't have done that. Okay? We want it to be used in a reasonable way, and for that to happen is a fairly complexity. All right, capital is kind of the same way. Capital, if I buy a banana and I use a banana to make banana bread to sell to my customers, or I buy some wheat and I make some bread and sell it to my customers, it's gone. The machine I used to make that bread, I bought, and I expect it to last for years and years and years. If I buy a truck for my business, I don't expect to use that truck once and have it be gone. I expect to use that truck for years and years. If I buy an airplane, if I'm an airline and I buy an airplane, I expect to get 20, 25, 30 years of use out of that airplane. If I build the Bellagio, I expect to get, 50, 60, 70, 80 years out of the Bellagio. How old is the Bellagio? The Bellagio is 25? The Mirage is 30? They're not going anywhere anytime soon, right? They're going to stick around here a long time. Yes? Yes. Willard's Hotel, where the Civil War generals all stayed when they were coming to visit the White House and coming to visit Washington. It's still there. Capital produces over time. That train engine is going to last a really long time. So when we buy capital, we're not just looking at the way the world is now. We have to try to guess at the way the world is going to be for a long period of time. When we're talking about capital, we use this word roundabout. Production is roundabout. You buy the capital. You might have bought that airplane 20 years ago that's flying people today. Okay? It's roundabout. It's not immediate. I bought the capital today and I'm using it today. That means when I price my capital, I need to be able to maximize the revenue over time. I don't think about building a hotel for this instant. I think about building that hotel for the next 20 or 30 or 40 years. I have to optimize my capital purchases over time. And again, That's more complex than buying, wheat and a banana. Okay? All right. Profit. There are people who are anti-profit, and we're not talking about little guys sitting naked up on the top of a mountain telling you how to live your life. We're talking about the entrepreneur making money. Profit is an important signal. Without profit, entrepreneurs would not have any idea where to put their resources. We allocate our resources where the profit is. Okay? So the last thing you want to do right now is invest in brick and mortar clothing stores, because they're going bankrupt right and left, and there's no market, and people aren't going to brick and mortar stores to buy their clothes, or that when they go, it's Target and Kohl's, and right? There's a small number of them. Right? Profits tell us where to put our resources. If taxi cab companies over time are making less and less money, that tells me not to start a taxi cab company. If Uber is making more and more money over time, that tells me to build a competitor to Uber. If Google is doing great, I could look at competing against Google and entering that market. Okay? I go where the profits are. And again, that's F, not PH. Okay? I go where the profits are. My investment goes where the profits are. People want to buy hotels in Las Vegas because there's money to be made. There's a signal. All right? Profits are important to us as a signal. Got that?